Hey folks, welcome back to Modern Day Money. My name is Carlo, and today we're going to be talking about compound interest. The first thing you know about compound interest is that it only works when you hit the like button for that YouTube algorithm. Okay, but seriously now. If you've been educating yourself in the world of personal finance, or just finance in general, you may have heard the term compound interest come up. It seems like one of those words or phrases that intuitively makes sense, but maybe when you think about it some more, you may not know exactly what it is. So let's break down what compound interest is, how it works, and why it's important. So what is compound interest? Let's start with an example because a dictionary definition won't help all that much. Let's say you have $1,000. You put that money into a savings account that offers 2% interest on your money. The $1,000 is referred to as your principal amount. The interest rate will multiply by the interest amount at a regular interval, typically once per year. So if you deposit that money on January 1st, 2020, by January 1st, 2021, you will have $1,020 because 1,000 times 0.02 is 1,020. The next year, you'll have $1,040.40. Notice how we didn't just gain $20 like we did the first year. Instead, we gained $20.40 because the interest rate was applied to the total amount of 1,020 and not just the 1,000 that you put in initially. That right there is compound interest. The money you gain from interest gains more interest, building upon itself, which is what compounding is. Some people, especially in the money world of social media, may refer to this as the eighth wonder of the world, because as time goes on, your money grows exponentially and not linearly. Compound interest can be represented by this formula: P plus parentheses 1 plus R over N to the power of RT, where P is the principal amount, R is the interest rate, N is the number of times this interest rate is applied to per time period, and T is the number of time periods. For a simple annual basis, N equals 1, which makes the formula much simpler and ends up looking like this. Okay nerd, so why should I care about compound interest? Well, here's another example. Let's say you diligently save $500 a month, and you do so for 30 years. By the end of those 30 years, you'll have saved $180,000. For the sake of this example, we won't take into account inflation or anything, just the math behind compound interest. Now let's say you put into a high-yield savings account that offered 2% returns. Again, this is just for the example. After those same 30 years, depositing the same $500 per month, you would have $243,408. That's $63,000 more. You put in the same amount, but because that interest kept compounding, building upon itself, it gained you an extra $63,000, which is 35% more. Now, if we consider having a proper investment account offering 8% returns, you would have $679,699 saved. Again, it's the same $500 a month that you've been investing, but the interest rate compounds significantly. That's $500,000 more of your money that is just pure interest. Now that we understand the point of compound interest, we can apply it to other financial decisions that we may make. Some people will proudly tout that they pay cash for everything and never carry any debt. They pay cash for their cars, and some people even pay cash for their homes. There are plenty of reasons why people do this. Most prominently is peace of mind. Knowing that no matter what, no one can take your property from you because you own it outright. That's a great feeling. Now, while I understand the reasoning behind this approach, I would argue against it purely from a mathematical point of view. Let's take a car purchase as an example. The average new car sold in the US is around $40,000. Most people can't afford to buy that outright, but let's say you can. You have $40,000 saved up for a new vehicle. But let's say the dealership is offering a 60-month 2% financing offer. Should you take it, or should you pay cash? Like I mentioned, many people would advise against any sort of debt, but in this case, I think this is good debt, and let me explain why. Let's say you put $5,000 down and the rest is financed. That's $35,000. At a 2% interest rate for 60 months, that comes out to $613 for 60 months. The total cost of the car over this period is $36,808. We're going to ignore any sort of running costs because they would be the same regardless of your payment method. You'll notice that $36,808 is more than $35,000 because the difference is essentially what you're paying in interest, $1,808 over 5 years. But while you were financing your vehicle, your cash wasn't just sitting around doing nothing. It was doing work in the market. Using the 8% average return as a rule, which is roughly what the S&P 500 averaged over the past 30 years, our $35,000 has turned into $51,426. Without adding anything to it, we've earned over $16,000 in interest in that same time period. What we have basically done is borrow money at 2% in order to gain 8%. That $1,800 that we paid in interest on the car payment ended up earning us $16,000 in our investment account. So by going down the route of financing, at the end of it all, we have $51,426 in our brokerage account and a fully paid off car. So let's compare that to if we bought the car cash and invested what would have been the same monthly payment, $613, into an investment account. After 5 years, we would have an equally paid off vehicle because we paid cash up front and $43,154 in our brokerage account. So the total difference is $8,272 when all is said and done. Because of compound interest, we were able to leverage the cheaper loan to get larger gains. The more money that we start off with, the more the compound interest can work for you. This does not mean, however, that you should go out and buy expensive things at lower interest rates just because you have the cash to cover it. You should always be making educated and calculated purchases. You could buy a car that costs $30,000 instead of $40,000 and end up even more money in your brokerage account. Or you could just not buy a new car altogether if your current one is just working fine and not giving you any issues. All these examples are good for showing you the power of compound interest and how to look at interest rates in general. Just because something is mathematically the better option doesn't necessarily mean it is the right one. If you don't have the stability or cash flow to afford something reasonably, even if you have the cash, then it's still not a good idea to buy it. You don't want to be cash poor. Without turning this into an investment advice video, I would just suggest that you always use the 8% returns as a baseline. Sure, there are individual stocks and the market as a whole can give bigger returns in certain times, but over the past 30 years, this is what the market has averaged, about 8%. The key takeaway from this video is that you need to have your money working for you. If it's in a savings account, it's barely keeping up with inflation, which means it's not really moving the needle at all. If it's just sitting around in cash, it's actually losing value to inflation. This means that your money needs to be invested in some sort of asset class that will provide you solid returns. These returns are then compounded for years and years and years, providing you with a huge retirement account without you having to do any extra work. Stick with this straightforward formula and you'll be reaching FIRE in no time. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe button for plenty more videos to come. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I'll get to them as best I can. And until next time, see ya.